Hello, everybody. We are going to be live in a couple of minutes. There was some problem in the Zoom, and because of that, Dr. Arvind is joined us. He is the director of Diacon Hospital, Bangalore, and is the president of Diabetes India. And he has joined us, Dr. Arvind Sosale. Sorry, Arvind ji, because of some problem in the Zoom, there has been some issue. And we will have Dr. Jingan, Dr. Sahu, and Manoj Chawla joining in some time. And can you hear me, Dr. Arvind?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Dr. Agarwal. I can hear you very clear. Can you?
Very good. We will have more people joining us as we join. Dr. Arvind, how are you managing yourself in this COVID era? How are you protecting yourself?
The same thing what the Ministry of Health and the Family Affairs have always guided us as healthcare workers. It's been a lot of hand washing, mask all the time when you go to the hospital, and then we have a face guard, and then we work with the gloves on, and it's been going on.
So are you taking hydroxychloroquine as a prophylaxis?
Yes, I did from day one because I believed in the drug, and as a person who's been working closely with IPCA on hydroxychloroquine and diabetes, somehow I was convinced that we should try it out. And people do talk about not having enough evidence and things like that. But I think these are desperate times, and we should not be really looking for too much of evidence. And I've been happy taking it.
I think Dr. Manoj Chawla has also joined us. He is the consultant technologist, and he is a coordinator department of diabetology at Asian Heart Institute, Mumbai, and is a founder president of United Diabetes Forum. And he also has joined, and Dr. Ashok Kumar Jingan, who is a senior consultant at BLK Hospital, and he is the director at Delhi Diabetes Research Center. So all four of us are here. And sorry for apology because we have to change at the last moment from Zoom to another StreamYard as an alternative, and now we are live on our platform all over. So thank you very much, Dr. Jingan. Thank you very much, Dr. Chawla, to be here. And before that, there are a couple of things which I want to say. One of them is we have learned over the last 50 days that Corona is going to stay. We have to live with Corona. We have to take away the fear of Corona from our mind. And if we have to take away the fear of Corona from our mind, we also have to see to it that the fear goes away from the mind of the people. And in both situations, we have to be very clear that our fear goes away. Now, there is a large number of patients who are diabetic patients. And on today, 40% of our hospitals are empty. Okay. People are afraid of coming to doctor's clinic. People are afraid of going to the hospitals. People are afraid of going to the lab, so they are not getting their HbA1c done. So maybe we may get another, maybe we may end up into Dr. Abhay is, yes. Sir. Dr. Abhay also has joined. Dr. Abhay is a professor of endocrinology at IMS and some hospital at Bhubaneswar. So, Dr. Abhay, your photograph, yes, you have also joined here. So, there is a fear in everybody's mind, and people are not coming forward for their diabetes consultation. First of all, how to take the fear out? Arvindji.
So the only thing is through an absolute proper education. I think we have to use all the social media platforms that we have as doctors, and it also the responsibility lies with the RSSGI and the Diabetes India and other platforms that we can make use of. And we have to tell the patients the impact of not testing their blood sugars, not doing their SMBGs, not getting their complications assessed. And we just have to tell them that now the lockdown is out and they're able to travel. And then the social distancing or the physical distancing is being followed in every hospital. So we have been sending out messages from the hospital that we are following all the instructions as given by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And everybody is asked the basic questions and tested for temperature and travel history and other things. And those who are unlikely to have COVID infections are allowed to come in. We are encouraging them to take appointments in time. And the sittings has been made quite a distance away from each other. So the lab technicians are using the right techniques as advised. So we need to now educate our patients that not testing can actually lead to a lot of complication, and it's only through education, and that's through the social media and the other platforms that we have.
So, Arvindji, because our live have just started on our website, there was a 5 minutes gap. So, let me introduce my faculty again. Hello, everybody, all our viewers, thousands of viewers who are watching this. I'm Dr. K.K. Agarwal, the President of Confederation of Medical Association of Asia and Oceania. I'm also the Chief Editor of MedTalks, under which platform we are organizing this event. I'm also the past National President of Indian Medical Association. I have with me Dr. Aravind SR, who is a director of Dicon Hospital at Bangalore, and he is a president of Diabetes India. I have with me Dr. Manoj Chawla, who is a consultant diabetologist and who is at Asian Heart Institute, Mumbai, and is a founder president of United Diabetes Forum. I have with me Dr. Abhay Kumar Sahu, who is a professor of endocrinology at IMS and some hospital in Bhubaneswar. And I have with me Dr. Ashok Kumar Jhingan, who is at a BLK hospital and a senior diabetologist at Delhi Diabetes Research Center. So after this introduction, I'm going to start again. And the basic thing is that people today are afraid. In fact, there was a time that even doctors were afraid. Even today, if I see that 22 hasn't yet started, people still don't have guidelines. And one of the fear came because in a clinic, most of our clinics are at home. So our neighbors are objecting to our clinics, though we are legally authorized to start our clinic. But our neighbors are people in the colony, people in the neighborhood, they all are objecting. We are not going to allow you to open your clinic because you are at risk. So there is a fear. So there is a fear. And if I go back to actual fear, our mortality is less than 3%. European mortality is 10 to 15%. And the mortality in North America, in the US, is approximately like 6 to 7%. So the mortality differs in various countries. So therefore, amongst Asia, we need to compare with Asia and not with Europe and not with other countries. That's one. Number two is somehow or other being an Indian is protecting you, whether it is BCG, MMR, vaccine, we don't know. But we also know that this virus presents clinically A as a virus, so therefore self-limiting disease. B, it has some bacterial properties. It causes high levels of procalcitonin in a severe case. It is some of the antibiotics are working on it, whether it is azithromycin or doxycycline. Number three, it is causing cytokine storm in some people, which people we don't know. It is causing immunoinflammation, therefore it causes high ESR, CRP, ferritin, which normally does not happen in a viral condition. It is causing thromboinflammation, so it is causing both rise in D dimer and fibrinogen. And it is also causing a condition called as hypoxic syndrome, which is a walking dead, that your oxygen levels are so low, but you are clinically conscious. And lastly, it is also behaving like an HIV, that it reduces lymphocyte, causes lymphopenia, and it causes, and when it causes lymphopenia, it enters the T cells, hostages the T cell, but does not multiply in the T cell. With these varied manifestations, the behavior of this virus is different in various countries. So therefore, immunoinflammation, which is much more common in European countries, and when we know somehow or other that these all 7 complications are not seen in Indians, and our mortality, though it is still contagious, our mortality is low. It's a time for all doctors who are watching and who have not yet opened their clinics to start opening your clinic from tomorrow. Call all our patients. Don't worry, I am there. मैं हूं ना. That should be the level of confidence we should be start giving. And now in the last 50 days, many people might have forgotten about what's new in the last 2 months as far as treatment is concerned. So we are going to concentrate on the treatment facilities as a revision, and during COVID era, do we need to modify our treatment facilities? Start with Dr. Arvind Thusale. And my thing is that in the current era, in the last 2 months, is there anything new in the oral treatment of diabetes in terms of OHS?
I think I'll straight away come to the point. I think nothing new has come. I think after the introduction of SGLT2, the guidelines that we follow is still about the ADA, EASD consensus guidelines and the RSSDI guidelines. I don't think there are any new drugs. Now, when it comes to hospitalization with a COVID infection, the general theory, I mean, most of the endocrinologists and diabetologists like us are not treating these cases, and these are being treated by intensivists and those who are taking care of the COVID-19 patients. So, insulin has been the mainstay in hospitalized patients, but otherwise, non-hospitalized patients who have a low risk of COVID-19 infection are being treated the way they have been treated before, and there's been no changes as such.
See, Dr. Manoj, when we talk about Dr. Arvind is saying is that most of the patients are being treated by intensivists, I agree. But now telemedicine is allowed. So therefore, all diabetologists can be on a telemedicine call in the intensive care unit where COVID wards are available and they should be able to guide. Manoj.
Yes, absolutely, Dr. Magal. So I think, yes, clearly, I think you had this session earlier also with you and under your auspices of IJCP about telemedicine. And in fact, one of the comments shared earlier was practice in diabetes, I think, is the most pertinent or most to be taken up by telemedicine, or telehealth is most pertinent to the practice of diabetes and endocrinology. So using that platform to keep connected with your patients in this new world, which will be post-COVID, modifying your practices, modifying the environment of your clinic, telemedicine, connecting with patients, continuing to guide them is going to be extremely important. And all of us who aren't doing that yet need to wake up to the situation that this isn't 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Unfortunately, COVID isn't going anywhere for quite some time to come. So all of us need to adapt to this and start getting available and active in treating our patients, especially ones with diabetes and chronic disease, because they are now beginning to feel the pinch. Most are extremely worried in terms of their high sugars and the fact that in case they catch it, they will be prone to more poorer outcomes. So all the more the reason that patients are trying to seek help for better metabolic management.
So before I come back to the oral hypoglycemic agents, Abhay, I want to know what is the consensus regarding ACE2 receptors. We know that the virus identifies the ACE2 receptors and affects them. We know ACE2 receptors are more in men than women. We know that ACE2 receptors are present practically in every part of the body. And whichever part ACE2 receptors are not present, that part is spared. ACE2 receptors increases with age, therefore age has high mortality. And we also know that ACE2 inhibitor has a dual action. It may increase the viral load, but may reduce the chances of. What is the consensus of ACE2 inhibitor as far as RSDI is concerned in India?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all my seniors, my dear friends. The thing is that there is actually one important thing I want to tell here, that normally whenever the coronavirus enters into the body, it is through ACE2 receptors. And there are a lot of the things which actually modify ACE2 receptors. And we know if you see the number of mortality regarding the male and female, in female the mortality is significantly less, and also number of infection is significantly less in female in comparison to the male. The reason is estrogen itself causes underscoring, it actually causes down regulation of ACE2 receptors. So this is the reason why actually in female number of ACE2 receptors is less in comparison to male. First thing. So this is the reason why actually the number of infection, or the if you see the statistics, 80% are 76 to 80% are male and only 20% are female. First thing. Second is among the diabetic patients, we know ACE is one of the important factor which plays a critical role for particularly nephropathy point of view, for cardiac point of view. But any ACE inhibitor you are giving, whether it is ARB or ACE inhibitor, they causes off regulation of particularly ACE2 receptors. So we are expecting or anticipating the if there is infection, and that will be should be significantly high. And if normally what happens, the ACE2 receptors are significant, high concentration is there in lungs, specifically in lungs. This is the reason why actually the virus easily enters into the body. So in the diabetic patients, if there is COVID infection, of course the severity is high. And if with diabetes associated morbidities there, like nephropathy, retinopathy, cardiovascular disease, CAD, anything is there, again the mortality significantly increases. But all the guidelines is clearly telling that if someone is on ACE inhibitor or ARB, then they should continue that drug, because if you see the risk benefit ratio, most probably the infection is significant less, and as Agrawal sir has already told that the mortality is significant less, and almost 85% patient usually having mild infection. So looking at this thing, those who are on ACE inhibitor ARB, they should continue. It is our RSHA guideline, it is a S guideline, it among also every guideline is telling those who are on ACE or ARB, they should continue that drug. Only thing is that they should maintain social distancing, and they should not go and come in contact with any unknown person or any known person having COVID infection. If you avoid that, then they can well manage with ACE inhibitor and ARB.
So our first message is, the take-home message today is that all diabetics, A, they should continue their ACE inhibitors and AR blockers. B, if they have a doubt, talk to your doctor. C, all people who are practicing diabetes, they can, by Medical Council of India guidelines, inform by an SMS to all their patients, listen, you are on ACE inhibitors, I have started you on an ACE inhibitor and it is safe. So it becomes also our duty, because these people otherwise will be guided by the WhatsApp, and they may either change the doctor, or they may change the medicine themselves, or stop the medicine themselves. That's why. So I want to talk to you, Dr. Jingan, that whenever you want to choose a drug, so we are talking about any field, whether it is diabetes, hypertension, antibiotics. So whenever we want to choose a drug, so A, we want it to be anti-inflammatory if possible. B, it should not be thrombogenic. So therefore, these two characteristics we look for. So, or C, it has some antiviral effect. So we are looking for antiviral antibiotics with antiviral effect. So similarly, we are looking for anti-inflammatory drugs. That means drugs which has anti-inflammatory action. Do we have that gliptins have some anti-inflammatory effect? There is some literature which talks about that gliptins have anti-inflammatory effect. Dr. Jingan. Am I audible, Ashokji?
I couldn't follow you, sir, because the voice is much disturbing.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that is there some evidence, because I've been reading about it, and they say that amongst oral hypoglycemic agents, gliptins have some anti-inflammatory action. So therefore, they may be drugs which may be useful in preventing COVID complications. I think my voice is not clear.
This is cutting.
Sir,
So,
can I answer that?
In especially
yes, please go ahead.
I think
मुझे
the
jingle
COVID
लगा,
infection. Ha,
Yes, go ahead.
COVID infection, it has been seen that in most of these patients, those drugs which cause more of a dehydration, these drugs should be, this should not be given, especially if we talk about the metformin, if we talk about the SGL2, if we talk about these drugs, drugs which cause more of a hydration, because the principle of treatment during this COVID infection in diabetic patients is maintain the hydration. That's one of the most important thing. Maintain the intensive glucose control. And it has been seen that if the patients, if we don't talk about the COVID, but if we talk about the general population, then of course, these are the two group of the drugs which are now available. First of all, the patient, whichever drug he's taking, let him continue. The baseline is a metformin. The other drug is that dual medicine, which can be added, either of the drug, which can be SGL2 blockers or DPP4 blockers, which have been helpful, because it has been seen that DPP4 blockers were much, much helpful in these patients. Of course, the best control of the diabetes is done by means of the insulin, and which is the goal line for these patients. Because basic idea is to maintain the HbA1c around 7%, 7.5%, not at the cost of a hypoglycemia. Because it was seen, observed in most of these patients, the mortality was
Sir,
7.3%.
actually, hello.
Sir.
Yes. Thank you, Ashok. And
Overall,
I'll ask
sir,
Abhay what you wanted to say something.
yeah,
Abhay, you
actually,
wanted to
I
say
want to
something?
tell, yeah, absolutely. I want to add, sir, that actually since
Your
if
picture
we
is
see
not
the
coming.
number of COVID, I don't know, but I'm there, sir. I don't know why it's not coming.
Okay, go ahead.
So actually, thing is that if we'll discuss, sir, normally 80 to 85% COVID infections are usually subclinical or there is actually asymptomatic. Only 10% have moderate symptoms, only 5% usually having severe symptoms. So those 85% diabetic patients who are continuing any drug, they should continue that drug. That is, if the blood glucose is controlled, if HbA1c is normal, in that case, there is absolutely no need to change that drug, their drug. And if those who are having moderate to severe, these are the people where we can plan for shifting to insulin, because these are the group where actually they need some specific care. Otherwise, those 85% subclinical or asymptomatic people, they usually should continue their own drug. There is no need of changing their OHA in any way. This is my own vision. Actually, Arvind sir and Dr. Manoj also can give their opinion regarding that part.
No, absolutely right.
Arvind.
I think that's what the norm is. I think what Dr. Jingan was referring to was patients who are critical and hospitalized. That's when the SGLT2s and the hydration comes into question. Otherwise, continuing the medications, as you rightly said. In fact, what we've seen as part of even telemedicine now, and in the current scenario, patients, the initiation of insulin actually has gone down even when the sugars are higher. So adjusting the dose of existing OHAs or adding any of the other OHAs is predominantly the tools that we all are utilizing, and insulin initiation, unfortunately, in terms where patients can't see you directly or want more time because this is period of stress, so that has gone down. As far as the gliptins, Dr. Agarwal, I'll just quickly add that I think there was some evidence about gliptins and in general wound healing in animal studies, but contrary to all these earlier reports, I think it's clear that gliptins are neither beneficial nor harmful towards COVID or any affection for the same. So they need to be continued for their benefits in diabetes just the same way.
I think I fully agree with what Manoj and Abhay both have said. I think insulin definitely has some evidence that it has some anti-inflammatory effects apart from being a great hormone. Apart from that, it's only the we know about hydroxychloroquine, but then this is not the time to start hydroxychloroquine. Definitely not as for prophylaxis of healthcare workers. It's okay, but at a time like this, I think most of the doctors who might.
In fact, other way, the hydrochloroquine causes more of a hypoglycemia.
That they are using insulin, but those who are fine, well, who come and consult us, who are nowhere exposed to COVID, I think they are just continuing their treatment, and if they're out of control, we request them to start insulin. If they don't want a second or a third drug, like what Manoj said, is what is being practiced.
So I'll come back to the same point again. What is the consensus amongst four of you, the ideal HbA1c level to be maintained in COVID era? Is it different? Is it the same? Should it be strictly, tightly controlled, or around one?
Well, there are
Abhay.
some
Yes, sir.
reports about immunity going down, and then especially the HbA1c is out of control at more than 8, and we don't have any concrete evidence whether it drops after 8 or after 9 or after 10. Has it got a genetic background? Is it related to the smoking, the obesity, hypertension, and the comorbid conditions? But overall, the general consensus is try to go for a tight control of diabetes. Anywhere 7 would be ideal in a patient who is still fit and young. And then you can decide by the age of the patient and his other comorbid conditions and follow the guidelines that we have been following before.
Absolutely. So as Dr. Arvind said, sorry, Dr. Agarwal,
So what I'm trying to say is, I want to go back, and I want all of you to come back with a consensus. One is, we have said is 7% is the ideal HbA1c to be maintained. Second thing
Right.
we have said is stay
Sir,
on the
sir,
treatment
here
base.
actually, hello, sir, actually,
Yes,
those
Abhay.
who are little bit young, in that 6.5 to 7 is better, not 7. 6.5 is also okay, those who are young. And those who are having associated comorbidities, we can plan for 7 in those
7.5.
group of patients. Yeah.
Okay. So the
But
with
not at the
comorbidity,
cost of
one,
a hypoglycemia.
Yes, sir, those who are
I
young
agree with you.
actually, yeah, those who are young actually hypoglycemia, even if there will be mild hypoglycemia, they can tackle that. Actually, it is not that much actually they will have to be problem. So those who are young,
Okay,
6.5
sir.
will be the target. And those who are little bit elder or having some sort of complication, 7 to 7.5 will be the best target for those people.
Perfect.
So I will, my consensus is that manage your diabetes effectively. Keep your HbA1c level between 6 to 7.5, depending upon on your comorbidity and depending upon your previous acceptable model. Keep it at that way, because COVID is not going to change your criteria, but keep it always between 6.5 to 7.5 as a shared decision between you and your diabetologist. That's second. And continue your treatment. And number three is, like any other acute critical illness, when there is a severe COVID infection, like any other, you need to be shifted to insulin. That's not specific for COVID. That will be for any other acute illness.
Critical illness.
Now, I want to come back to a consensus
I think
on all the
one
three.
point I would like to add, if you allow,
Yes, go ahead.
why the sugar levels are going up in this present situation, because of the lockdown. People are not able to go for exercise. They are having a stress. They are having again the anxiety. So I think the stress and lack of exercise and eating at the home is causing a high blood sugar level in majority of our patients right now.
Sir,
I know.
Ashok sir,
I
you tell, have your food has increased or not? I think in this
No,
forum,
I
everyone
will-
is their
I
food has
cannot,
increased.
because we don't.
I would slightly also make an observation that all the cremation grounds have 40% less deaths. Therefore, if the stress level was high, the deaths would have been more. So there are 40% less deaths in the cremation grounds, and taking all COVID deaths into consideration, even in the largest cremation ground in Delhi, there is 50% reduction in deaths. This is something we don't know. We don't know why hospitals are empty. We don't know why teleconsultations, your appointments are not the same amount of numbers which you used to have. We don't know. We exactly don't know what is happening. So we are also anticipating a pandemic of chronic diseases coming with complications maybe another 1 month from now. You will start getting uncontrolled blood pressure presenting with complications. Heart patients, because they are not controlled, they may come back with complications. We don't know. But as on today, it's a mystery all over the world, not only in India. It's a mystery that why emergency departments have less number of cases, why less MIs are coming, why less diabetic complications are occurring. We don't know. Let it be a mystery. But our coming back to is, we now have three groups of drugs. we have a metformin as one drug, gliptins as second, and SGL2, LT2 inhibitors as third. So I want to like a consensus on each one of them. A, COVID era in COVID patients and non-COVID patients. So metformin and then gliptins and then SGLT2 inhibitors. Starts with Arvind, Manoj, and Abhay, and then Ashok.
I think I will go to the non-COVID cases who are perfectly normal and have no exposure to COVID. I think the guidelines have not changed at all. It is still going to be metformin followed by one of the two drugs. But if we have to follow the ADA-EASD guidelines, if there is a risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, it would be either an SGLT2 or a GLP-1. And then predominantly, if there is insulin deficiency, then probably DPP-4 comes in. And provided the cost can be borne by the patient. But otherwise, if cost is a problem, we still use sulfonylureas in patients who cannot afford. So these guidelines have not changed at all. So that will continue to be there. But those with a COVID infection hospitalized, I would prefer to stop all the oral hypoglycemic agents, all three of these if they're on, and keep the patient on insulin, preferably 3 or 4 times a day till everything is completely normal. And when once he's back, then we can think of restarting him on the oral hypoglycemic agents. I would like to hear Manoj and Abhay also talking about it.
Sure.
But
So,
before I,
so in the
Manoj,
era,
yes,
yes, Doctor.
Manoj, before Manoj enters in, I need to talk about the word cost. In the post-COVID era, the construction of a hospital will become cheaper. There will be no more central AC hospitals because you have to be ready for COVID-20 if it comes. There will be large wards like a economy plane. There will be a large general ward which will be open with windows open, with no central AC. With like a hotel, like a plane, you will be sharing your bathroom. Like a 5-star bathroom will be available, toiletry will be available. And with that, cost of construction will go down significantly. And 2-bedded, 3-bedded, 4-bedded rooms out. There will be either single rooms or there will be a general wards. You will have large airy rooms, ventilated rooms with sunlight coming in. If the cost of construction is going to go down, hospitalization cost will go down. Patients will have enough money to buy the medicines. So the cost, because as on today, we are compromising the cost of the medicine because the cost of hospital stay is very high. We say we want to compromise on the cost of the medicine, but not the cost of the room. So therefore, I think cost is something which most people will be able to bear in future. Cost is not going to be a consideration because the cost of treatment is going to go down.
Sir,
So that's
actually,
an interesting perspective,
actually,
Dr. Agarwal. But I'm not sure that sounds like an hospital or more like a sanatorium. Maybe that's the trend that which we used to have in one earlier times of pandemics. The sanatoriums built. So it may be that. But coming back to the question about oral drugs, I don't think anything is changing in terms of guidelines or our understanding or our practice in pre-COVID and post-COVID era. When you're talking about the post-COVID era, the guidelines and management with oral drugs would still be the same. We'll be following the same guidelines, lifestyle, metformin, and then choosing any of the other drugs on the basis of their comorbid conditions, either the presence or lack of them. It's only the other aspects which are pertaining to hospitalized patients, and which, as we agree, irrespective of COVID or any other infection causing hospitalization and criticality, the principles of management are different in a hospital. So I don't see any change coming in our belief towards this. Yes, we may all get a little more cost sensitive, even though the drugs of the cost, as you said, patients may be able to afford that. We do already see that with a lot of work, labor, a lot of jobs and other insecurities coming in over the last 2 months. There may be a scenario that even our reasonably affording patients may request us to offer them medications which are not as expensive or which reduce their burden of spend on healthcare.
Boss, actually, I want to add here something. Sir, actually, I want to add here. Actually, in Odisha, we have actually lot of COVID hospitals. Out of that, in our hospital, there is a COVID hospital which is having 800 beds. And now almost 72 patients having COVID positive are being treated there. And I am one of
Your
the
voice is
supervisor
gone
in that
up.
hospital. And that they are both. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, go ahead. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So those, sir, those actually almost there are 72 patients now admitted there in our COVID hospital, COVID positive patients. So those who are having only symptoms, actually they are sitting there, they are playing everything, they are doing only a social distancing being maintained. And in those cases, we are not changing any OHA. We are continuing that. Only 2 patients are on ventilator. In those group, they are on insulin. Otherwise, we are continuing all those OHs. And what actually Arvind sir usually has told that majority patients usually they require to continue their own OHA, whatever they are continuing. Only a subset of people who are actually really sick, they need actually a special attention, and those people they need you have to go for insulin. And regarding the therapy, only thing is that concern is SGLT2 because a lot of the time we discuss that when a patient is admitted to the hospital, SGLT2 is not an ideal drug. But if someone is asymptomatic, you can continue SGLT2. Otherwise, any sort of symptoms is there, most probably you have to stop SGLT2. Rest of the drugs you can continue, you can add insulin. And if someone is on ventilator, only insulin is there, no OH is allowed.
So I want to ask one thing, Abhay. How many diabetics are there at the moment with COVID?
Dr.
Sir, actually,
Agrawal,
out of
the
72
the
patients,
treatment of diabetes is individualized.
sir, let me
And
finish. Sir, Ashok sir,
No,
please.
no, Ashok,
Out of
I'm coming.
actually
Yes, go
out
ahead.
of 72 patients, sir, actually out of 72 patients, there are 14 patients are diabetic, and the rest are actually non-diabetic. And all those patients actually they are actually nobody is in ventilator. Only 2 patients were ventilator, and now they are up. Actually, they have went up from the ventilator, and now nobody is there in ventilator, and everybody's blood glucose is well controlled. Those who are actually taking orally, their blood glucose is well controlled, and those who are on ventilator, they are on actually basal bolus therapies. We are continuing that.
Thank you, Abhay. Ashok, you wanted to say something? Yes, Dr. Jingan, you were saying something. Dr. Jingan, you were saying something.
The treatment for diabetes is individualized.
That's okay. That's always
I
there.
think the
Yes.
people who are before can continue with the same medicine. If the sugar levels are getting up, then they can add on the medicine, because nowadays they always say that single medicine, like if you start, as the Dr. Chawla said, you start with the metformin and then add the another drug, like verified trial has shown that if you get DPP4, the results are much better. But I think the main thing, as you know, the presenter, there are three, four things there, and this we must always from the patient and from the patient point of view. It's not that from the pharmaceutical point of view, the treatment has to be visualized. Number one, the patient can afford it. Number two, the patient adherence. If it is expensive, he will not be able to adhere to that treatment. Number three, it should be causing. Four things are taken care. Whatever medicine we give, and if the sugar levels are under control, he will continue with the medicine. And I think Dr. Ajay has said excellently that in the hospital, the different treatment, in the outside, there's a different. But definitely, the one thing which is very common that now patients are saying, doctor, don't prescribe the expensive medicine. So that change has taken place recently in the patient's behavior. That is, I have observed.
I still feel that cost is a shared decision between a doctor and the patient. If we explain them well, and we can come back, that's a shared decision between doctor and the patient. That will be individualized on a family to family, from a patient to patient. But remember one thing, that there was a case in one of a hospital in Delhi where a stent was put, and a particular decision was taken by the doctor. A stent was put in a patient, and the case came to Medical Council of India. First, it came to State Medical Council. I was 11 years. I was in State Medical Council. For 1 year, I was in Medical Council of India. And the answer came was, patient said, I was not given an option. How can a doctor decide whether it is cheap or cost? He has to give me the best option. And if I can't, I will take a decision whether I need a cheaper one or not. Doctor, nobody to tell me this is cheaper, this is costlier. He has to tell me the best. And if I can't afford, I will go back to the doctor and take a shared decision. I don't want a doctor telling me that there are two options available. This is cheap and this is costly. They are supposed to tell me the best. So this is an individual decision. I don't want to come in between a shared decision between a patient and a doctor as far as diabetes management is concerned. The next thing which comes is that I would like, because all of you are associated with your diabetic associations, and you are also heading the association. So can we come back with an analysis, or India can, because at the moment, US is dictating us. At the moment today, US is dictating us. They are coming out with guidelines. CDC is dictating us. CDC says we don't agree with WHO. Trump says I don't believe in WHO. I don't believe in China. And somehow or other in India, we are not coming out with data. So can we come out with a data that suppose you pick up 100 diabetics and 100 non-diabetic, for them are COVID. Is there a difference in clinical manifestations in Asian countries? India can only lead amongst Asian countries if we can come back in. I'm not talking about data from the West. I'm talking about in India, 100 patient diabetic, 100 non-diabetic. Do we have a different manifestations of COVID? I want to answer that.
So yeah, actually we are keeping all data. Actually, now we have almost 111 admissions in our hospital, and we are keeping all data. I can provide RSSDI all data, and as a team member, we can have analysis, because in our hospital do everything and analyze, and I can hand over to RSSDI so that we can have a good paper and we can publish under RSSDI guideline, so that whatever the difference between particular, specifically between diabetic, COVID diabetic and non-COVID diabetic, I will give all those, whatever they are in our hospital, I will provide everything.
So Arvind Ji, this is the time. Say there is a concept in computer that you launch Pentium 2, and you can launch Pentium 3 after 6 months and Pentium 4 after 6 months. So we don't have to wait for a data to become 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000. Whatever is available, we start publishing. Anything, even
Yes.
if you publish one case, it's a nevo, it's a knife. You can publish even one case. Arvind Ji, what about you heading that and coming out with some data?
Sir, unfortunately, what has happened is the national associations like Diabetes India, RSSDI, and others are basically doing the role of advocacy and are not a part of the treating doctors who are taking care of patients with COVID-19. What ICMR has now told the Doctor Association is that we should actually contact the doctors and the hospitals treating COVID-19, like what Hawaii has been doing, and actually try to get the data out of each hospitals. There can be a lot of confounders, so we cannot really put the blame on diabetes and say that, okay, diabetics had this many problems. He can also have hypertension, coronary artery disease, maybe he was a smoker, various other factors. So the ICMR has actually requested the national associations to come out with the data of each state and then to see what exactly happens over a period of time. See, India is a very diverse country.
Will ICMR,
and it's very difficult to
ICMR,
find the data the right way.
I say Arvind Ji, ICMR coming out with the data will take months and years.
Yes.
Because they are bound by the government. The data will go to the HM and then he will decide whether it can be declared or not. So therefore, what US is doing and what China is doing, say China, US has declared a Twitter and a website where anybody can post their radiological pictures. Similarly, somebody has created a website that any eye changes, post it here. Similarly, you as top, suppose all four of you combine together and you create a Twitter account or a Facebook account and put it down. People like me will advertise it to 200,000 people in the 2 lakh people in the country who are doctors. Kindly post your diabetic patients with the consent of the patient. Or you ask your patients to post your data in the interest of the society. Getting 100 cases in one day, your paper is ready the second day. I mean, there are ways of getting the data. Suppose you can
Sir,
ask public to do it.
sir,
Yes.
sir, I can share 121 patients data tomorrow. I can share 121 patients data tomorrow. We have 121
Yes,
patients data. Out of
Abhay,
will be.
Abhay, what Dr. Agarwal is
I will
suggesting
be-
that let's collaborate and do this. So
yeah,
Yes.
that would be great. So that would be a great thing.
Arvind.
Actually, I can share all 121 patients data within 2-3 days. We have all data with us, so I
Wonderful.
can share that. Yeah.
So there is
That
Arvind
would be.
Abloche, this is a question for you, and he's talking about remogliflozin. What about that drug? Is it better? Is it different? The SGL2 inhibitor, I usually pronounce it wrong.
Remogliflozin.
Remogliflozin.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well,
Manoj.
I was one of the investigators who did the phase 3 trial of it when it was compared with dapagliflozin. At this point of time, what we know about the drug is it's not inferior to DAPA in terms of safety and efficacy, but we need to have a lot of data about the CV safety and the other parameters which the other SGLT2 drugs have shown. So all I can say at this point of time is based on the phase 3 trials, Remo has done well in terms of safety and efficacy, but it still has to prove its CV neutrality or his renal parameters same as other SGLT2s or not. So that's where we stand with Remo. So you can't say that it is better at this point of time. It is inexpensive, and we are happy that an Indian company has come out of it. But time will prove whether it's good on the cardiovascular system and the renal safety parameters compared to other drugs.
So I'll just add to that, Dr. Agarwal.
Yes, yes.
In fact, for remogliflozin, just yesterday it was that there's some data presented. So they have a huge pipeline of studies planned
28,000.
for remogliflozin. Yes. So Revolution is one of the other studies looking at the cardiovascular real world data. They have Inspire and Inspire M, which is again going to be studies done in different populations. So they have actually a great plan of studies, and some of them have already started, and good amount of patient data coming in. Clearly talking about further establishing its efficacy. So like Dr. Arvind said, even as part of that phase 3 trial for remogliflozin, in terms of efficacy, I think it's showing that safety, no safety concerns as of yet, but would require longer data to further substantiate those safety benefits which are seen. So remogliflozin clearly seems to have been taken up well here and continues to be an affordable option in the SGLT2 class for our patients who can't afford the more validated ones or the ones with cardiovascular outcome trials or the innovators, as some may say.
And I want to add
Can it be
here,
combined with?
even if, sir, actually I want to add here, even if any COVID patients, Dr. Agrawal, sir, actually I want to add here, any COVID patient, even if on remogliflozin, if doing well, there is no need of, though there is no data for particularly CV point of view, but still there is no need of discontinuing that drug. That is my view, particularly if someone is on having mild infection. If of course moderate to severe infection, we have to shift to insulin. But if mild infection, if someone is on remogliflozin and blood glucose is well controlled, they should continue that drug.
Okay.
I think
and,
Remo
there
data,
is
they
another-
have, Dr. Agarwal, the data
Yes.
of a Remo was presented, I think 28,000
There is a
patients they have
question for
presented.
you, Dr. Jingan. Dr. Jingan, there is a specific question for you that they say erectile dysfunction is common in diabetic patients, and 10% of our patients have erectile dysfunction. Kindly give the updated guidelines.
About the erectile dysfunction?
Sir,
Dysfunction in
suddenly
diabetic
from COVID to erectile dysfunction.
because they're sitting at home. They are locked down, they're sitting at home.
Yeah,
and
sound.
I wrote, I was a part of a discussion about a baby boom that 9 months from now, you may have a baby boom, gynecologists may have a huge practice. Now people are at home, therefore they are looking for how to take care of ED because they have more time with their partner.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That is also one of the important actually part regarding the diabetic.
I think that I think that
Yes,
there
sir.
is that's why there will be that you will have a large number of the children during this COVID 2 months or 3 months of the lockdown. So I don't, because the reason is that they have a free time, they have a mental relaxation. So only thing is that how to there is no other way of
What is
entertainment.
the current
That is the reason.
guidelines
But
for
I don't think everybody is in a productive stage. So it is only matter for those who are in a productive age group, not for all of the other age group of the people.
Therefore, I'm saying the question is how to manage erectile dysfunction. Which medicines are the best? Are we going ahead with sildenafil, tadalafil, and what about diabetic patients with cardiac patients? Many of them are on nitrate. So, what is the correct? So, they want to revise that because huge queries have come at this particular time. Patient wants to know. So, I just want, it's nothing new, but it's a part of discussion. I want to put down an updated guideline. Arvindji,
In fact, about the medicine part, the erectile dysfunction, about 90% of the time, it's basically the psychological part. So first thing is the reassurance, and the medicine, whenever we prescribe, that has to be explained to both the partners, the patient as well as to the spouse. Because until unless that you have explained the how to be taken, it will be not useful, because he may take it and sleep. It is not useful. So it has to be taken 30 minutes before the act, and then it will be useful. Number one. Number two group of the drugs are there now, widely available. If we take a talk about international, it's one is the Viagra. The another is about the another group is that Megalase, or that is a Cialis group of the drug. These two of the drugs are very useful. They have been a wonderful drug for those people who are having erectile dysfunction in the diabetes. Only thing is that careful in those patients who are on and especially those after the myocardial infarction, those who are on anti-anginal drugs, those who are after the bypass surgery. And only thing is the reassurance is the one thing. Large number of patients have been done a wonderful, they have given a wonderful response. I gave them this drug, that the drug which is available in India, that's a Keverta, about 50 milligram daily for a period of 4 to 6 weeks. Not like that. And they have done it because it's a conditioning. This causes a regular vasodilation, and it helps a large number of patients to get rid of the ED. The another thing is that these patients need basically psychological support and a reassurance, very good control of the diabetes, avoid smoking, avoid alcohol, because most of the time it's alcohol which causes more suppression of the desire instead of increasing it. So all these factors has to be kept under the mind, and then only these patients can have a better control. Of course, depends upon what is the cause. If there is a high if there is the androgen is less, then the
So, dear colleague, all of you, you are watching
treatment
this
is different.
program.
But if this is the only ED, then
Ashokji, there is a breaking news. So there is a breaking news as it happens in a news channel. This is also a news channel going on as a program on diabetes. And there is a breaking news that we will extend our discussion for some more time, because we were thinking tomorrow everybody will go for work. The lockdown has been extended till May 31st. So you will have to listen to more and more of Zoom, and you will have to listen to more and more of, you will have to stay down, and specifically the elderly. So the lockdown
that was
extension
it.
news, center extends lockdown till May 31st. MHA issues new guidelines. So carry on. We will carry on for 15 minutes extra because we started slightly late, and those people who were there, so we can carry on. Yes, Dr. Arvind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm not much of an expert when it comes to erectile dysfunction, because we have a team of uroandrologists who handle that, and then the psychologists take care of the psychological counseling part of it. And I think I too learned a lot from what Dr. Ashok Kumar Jingam was saying. He seems to have done his PhD in that. So I think I can listen to Manoj Chawla talking about erectile dysfunction. It's been quite some time. So let me also learn from you, Manoj, because we just refer the case to the andrologist who handles it.
So again, thanks, Dr. Arvind. But I really don't know much of the connect between current era and erectile dysfunction. Of course, erectile dysfunction is more predominant in people with diabetes, and that continues to be a concern. In fact, for everything that we've been speaking over the last 50 minutes in terms of worsening of hyperglycemia or worsening of any of the complications, there is a silver lining to this entire COVID episode as well. So it's not that everybody that we are in touch with is having their sugars worsen or is undergoing through a lot of stress. A lot of people who are now at home, whose that crazy schedule is not crazy anymore, running from morning to night, traveling and doing a lot of that, are actually finding more time to relax, spend time with family, probably where possible they're having a better exercise regime, finding time. So it's not unusual for us to also see a lot of patients seeing improvement in their glycemia. A lot of them, in fact, even going into hypoglycemia and us having to correct the dose. And similarly for ED, the fact that they're getting more time at home and are more relaxed, that may actually, if they're not under psychological stress and more relaxed, it may actually land up in improving their sexual health along with their overall metabolic health.
That's good. And a couple of more questions. They say stress causes increased cortisol levels, giving rise to hyperglycemia. Dr. Mulchandani from Mumbai. And I think Dr. Manoj has already said stress. It's two types of stress. There is a corona anxiety, and there is also a phobia. But there is, in general, it's a more relaxing atmosphere at home. And because corona gives you an isolation of 14 days, and which tells you that you spend these 14 days with me and nobody else. I will allow only one person to stay, and I'll give you enough time to introspect yourself. What is the purpose of your life? What you have done till today, and what is your going to be a plan for future with that? And then young people, young obese people, young obese pancreatic-induced diabetes mellitus. What is the drug of choice? Can SGLT2 inhibitors be given or not?
The thing is that, sir,
Yeah, Abhay, go ahead.
actually, for a particularly those who are having pancreatic diabetes or FCPD, and that is the most important thing is that normally they are young. If they are obese, first thing is that most probably all pancreatic diabetes, they need insulin. There is no confusion. But there will be a subset of people who actually responds to sulfonylurea, responds to metformin, and responds to all other drugs. And their SGLT2 can be given. The only thing is that these are not the appropriate candidates for particular DP4 inhibitors. So DP4 inhibitors should not be given to those group of patients. If someone is responding to OHA, SGLT2 can be well given to those group of patients. Otherwise, majority of those group of people require insulin for actually better control of blood glucose.
So let me go back to the rapid fire. Are SGLT2 inhibitors given in young, lean patients? I am at the moment not seeing all of you. Kindly by turn speak out rapid fire. Are SGLT2 inhibitors given in young, lean patients? Yes, no.
There is no contraindication to use it, so it can be given.
Yeah,
So
the
there are
Indian lean patient is not necessarily phenotypically lean. It's only phenotypically they have visceral fat. So yes, it can be used.
So can Remo be
Can be
given reduced ejection fraction heart failure with reduced ejection fraction? Can Remo be given?
At this point of right, Remo do not have that evidence, but the other SGLT2s have it. As Manoj said, they are coming out with a number of trials. We just have to wait.
Hydroxychloroquine in diabetic patients as prophylaxis.
Yes, we can give hydroxychloroquine as a prophylaxis in diabetic patients, but those health workers who are directly coming in contact with people, they need that prophylaxis. There is no need of giving a prophylaxis to each and every diabetic patients.
Perfect, correct. I agree.
Hospitals are not admitting non-COVID patients. Object them, talk to the local IMA or talk to the local division of RSSDI. They will look after it.
No, sir. I think that's wrong. The hospitals, at least in Mumbai, the scenario, there are some hospitals which are non-COVID, and in fact, they are requesting the consultants to admit patients regularly. Otherwise, their hospital may be designated as a COVID hospital. So it's
Yes. Absolutely. Then is it true that diabetic patients are not dying of pneumonia, but they are dying of other complications, non-pneumonic complications? That means they are
And we are admitting everybody. So COVID, non-COVID, we are admitting admission. Yeah, Odisha government is taking utmost care. There is no confusion. Nobody is refused for particularly OPD service, admission, everything is open for everybody.
I know, but then I said that's an administrative issue we don't want to discuss. The question they're asking is, which I want an opinion from everybody, diabetic patients' mortality is because of which complications? They die because of diabetic ketoacidosis, they die because of infection, they die
I
because
think
of
it's
cytokine storm, they die because of thrombotic episode with coronary artery disease, or they die with immunoinflammation leading to precipitation of things. What is the
I,
precipitating factor of diabetes death in
I think,
India?
as far as I am aware, sir, I think it's vasculopathy. It is more thrombosis and vasculopathy, which seems to be a bigger issue. LRTI may be there in some patients, but not all. So vasculopathy and thrombosis seem to be a bigger
Yeah.
issue in people with diabetes.
Sir,
So
actually,
if
it's not only for diabetes. Even if in
I know,
non-diabetic patient,
but
those who
here
are
we are
dying, the
here we are
vasculopathy,
talking.
DIC, vasculopathy, and thrombosis are the three terminal main events, even if in non-diabetic patients. It's
So
not
if
like
that's
that
so,
only diabetic patients having that terminal complications. Though
if
even
that's
those who are going to that actually in that extent of more severe infection, thrombosis, vasculopathy is the main terminal event.
If that's so, all diabetics, when they are admitted with COVID, should be put on low molecular weight heparin till they are okay.
Yes,
Even symptoms
that is
clear.
what is being followed in most of the places worldwide, sir. Low molecular weight heparin is
Sir,
being used in most of the cases.
actually, our two patients who are on ventilator, all are on low molecular weight
I know, and I'm
heparins.
talking about non-serious patients. I'm talking, see, for me, seriousness is there are three types of patients: A, oxygen independent; B, oxygen dependent; C, ventilator dependent.
So
So therefore, I'm saying is,
those who are oxygen independent, they don't need anything. You
no,
can
but
continue with everything.
but
They even if don't require
if they are on oxygen, we should start low molecular weight heparin at that
absolutely.
time.
That is
To
these are
wait
the
for
people.
oxygen.
These are the people. Those who are requiring oxygen or those who are on ventilator. These are the two group of people where you can plan for low molecular weight heparin.
So all my viewers who are watching this, dear colleague, that we have learned a lot today. Uh, I want to emphasize that in India, thrombo inflammation is very common. It's easy to diagnose. Check their D dimer level and fibrinogen level. If you find that both are raised, take it for granted. This is a moderately severe COVID. And even if they are on anticoagulation, they still can have high fibrinogen level. They can have high D dimer level. Their dose of anticoagulation may need to be intensified. Most of the patients who are dying, they are dying of pulmonary embolism, they are dying of a right heart failure. So if you find a patient with sudden onset of a pulmonary embolism or a right heart failure, rule out COVID infection in them. And timely anticoagulation may improve to the extent that Mayo Hospital in US has started a project of giving them TPA, that is tissue plasminogen activator at that particular time to reduce the mortality. So in diabetics, according to our experts, this complication may be slightly more than in a non-diabetic patient. Therefore, be careful. We know that in diabetics, mortality is higher. Number one. Number two is there is another condition, Dr. Arvind, and that is we have patients called as walking dead. Walking dead is a phenomena where your oxygen levels, SaO2 levels may be 60 or 70. That means SpO2 level is very, very, very low. Otherwise, the patient is coming walking, he's talking to you. We call them as a walking dead patient because he's going to die in the next 24 hours because with a hypoxia of 60, he may not survive.
Yeah.
B, you're not going to allow the relations to come inside. And if he dies, there will be a dispute. The relations are going to say, I brought the patient alive. He was talking, he was walking, and now you are saying he is dead. So, is it common in India? And if yes, is it more common in diabetics?
So I don't think I'm qualified to answer that question at all because I have not been talking to many doctors who are actually treating. And Abhay, your hospital is actually treating patients and then admitting COVID cases. I would like to hear from you.
Sir,
Abhay?
actually we have a when someone is entering our COVID hospital, there is a separate hospital. It's not attached to our original hospital. When someone is entering to the COVID hospital, there itself we are actually seeing the oxygen saturation. If oxygen saturation is less than 80%, we start telling the patient is serious, and we have to actually inform the attendants and everybody, that something might happen, because actually nobody is allowed, or any attendants, anybody is not allowed inside the hospital or inside the particularly specifically that space. So we used to tell everybody, if the oxygen saturation is more than 90%, then we can take care. Most probably the patient is having milder form of infection, and every day morning we'll inform your attendants. But if someone is having less than 80%, we are specifically telling the patient that patient is serious, that anything can happen, and in due course of time, every 6 hourly, 8 hourly, we are actually telling those patients what is the progress of the patients. That is the thing
So,
what we are doing.
Manoj, the first patient who
Yes.
was an Italian patient in Jaipur, I'm talking about way back in March. And when the first patient came in India, and he was an Italian doctor, he was amongst a group of all the people. He was cured on 14th day, he was discharged, and a week later, he has an acute MI and he died. So he was, I don't know whether he was a diabetic or not. So therefore,
Sir, he was a
acute
diabetic. Sir, he was a
He was
diabetic.
He was diabetic.
Yeah.
He was
so
diabetic.
there is a situation, this is called late complications of COVID, which can occur 3 to 4 weeks after recovery. And we don't know, his echo was not done, whether he had myocarditis or not. But we do know that there is a stress in the coronary arteries because of the immunoinflammation. There is a plaque rupture. Therefore, sudden death is very common among diabetics. How do we take care of that in today's era? Because I'm again coming back to the same question of a dispute between a family and a doctor. If you don't explain to them, we will end up in ransacking the whole hospital. You did not tell us. So, do you feel that every patient coming, we should tell them, if you is diabetic, the chances of sudden death are very high, even after?
I think keeping across the information to all the patients as the information is evolving will be the duty of all treating doctors who are interacting with them. Having said that, this death that we are talking about, this doctor, this was March. Unfortunately, the numbers have increased in India and globally, so we know much more about what is happening with patients with COVID, their complications, and how things are evolving. So probably now, a lot of these patients, we clearly know there's a conversation about use of antiplatelets in these patients, use of low molecular weight heparin, statins. So a lot more precautionary, preventive, prophylactic treatment is offered from the vascular health point of view. Having said that, yes, all those patients who are beyond a certain age and are at high risk, prophylactic prevention of whatever one can be done to prevent cardiac events should be kept in mind for all patients, even post-discharge.
So, I want to add another thing. Yes, Arvind. Yes,
Dr. Agarwal.
One of the things that the cardiologists have been talking about is to do an echo before the discharge, at least as a preventive measure, just to check whether the heart is okay and whether the chambers are okay. I think this can probably become the new routine for most of the patients, and definitely for diabetics for the next couple of months.
Specifically, one thing has come is the day before
Dr.
yesterday.
Agarwal, the question was, your question.
Yes.
So your question was very good, because nowadays most of these patients who are COVID, they are being discharged. What would be there with them? I think the residual one should be careful. Once the patient is discharged, he will have a once-in breathlessness, and dyspnea will persist for a long time. From the cardiac point of view, he will have arrhythmia, he will have a myocarditis, and he will have congestive heart failure. He will have an abnormal KFT persisting for a long time. And one thing is very sure, there, if he was not diabetic, 5 to 7% of these patients will develop diabetes because of a COVID virus, which directly and indirectly affecting the pancreatic cells and injuring the beta cells, causing a diabetes in these patients. So these are the residual abnormalities which will persist in this group of the patients who once had a COVID infection.
Sir, actually,
so this should be a very important thing.
Is there any data to tell that
Yeah,
COVID
exactly.
increases the risk of diabetes?
Type
Is
1
there any
diabetes?
data?
Yes, Italian data, they have 5 to 7% of these patients do develop,
Actually, I have not come across,
and do
sir,
develop this COVID.
I have not
So is
come
that
across.
stress
I got it
hyperglycemia?
because I was going through this.
Common for any infection. I don't think so. There is
In
specific.
fact, I was going through that one of the.
Sir, actually, now
why-
actually, this is not the time to
Yes.
actually tell. We are not actually still sure that actually COVID can increase the risk of diabetes. Sir,
I think it may be only stress hyperglycemia, Abhay. Just like
yeah,
you see
that's
in
what I'm telling.
infection.
That's what I'm telling. It could be a stress hyperglycemia.
Because
but in this forum, we should not actually discuss or we should not tell people that COVID increases the risk of diabetes. Actually, the process should be very much clear.
Abhay, I
I'm
was
not
attending 1
part
month
of guidelines.
online course
I want to say
with
one
Mayo
thing,
Clinic, and then it was
Ashokji.
all in this discussion in those Mayo
Ashokji,
Clinic 1 month.
Ashokji, there is a difference between a study, opinion, and a consensus. So the
That's what I'm
consensus
telling,
here
sir.
is the consensus here is diabetes, that COVID does not precipitate diabetes. There may be individual
Absolutely,
observation,
I'm agreeing, sir.
which is fine. Now
Actually,
regarding
even if
ECHO,
sir, even if Mayo
there
has
are
nothing
Yes,
to
Abhay.
tell regarding this because it's a new. Actually, even if
Agreed.
Mayo Clinic cannot tell anything, the reason is
There
nobody
is
has done
a-
any studies. Nobody
there is
has
a
done
new
any
guideline.
studies.
Yes, Abhay.
Yeah.
There is a
So
new
how come you?
guideline. There is a new guideline which has clearly said is that if a patient after COVID recovery is going for a type of a sports activity, then he needs a cardiac echo immediately. He cannot
Absolutely,
be
that is the most.
given
Yeah.
a clearance like somebody says, I want to go to Vaishno Devi ki yatra or something unaccustomed exercise, then that has now come as a echo needs to be done with that.
सब बंद है
Required, sir.
उनको
Required.
बता देना कि सब बंद है.
No, I need to now I need to close down in the next 4 to 5 minutes. There is I need to revise to those reviewers who are watching that once you are doing a diabetic practice and you are practicing as a telemedicine, be careful. The annexure of the new telemedicine guidelines maintains mandatorily that you need to write the generic name of the drug. So make sure that when you're writing a telemedicine prescription, the name of the generic medicine is mentioned as a diabetic treatment, number one. Number two, always let the patient initiate the call. You do not initiate the call, because if you initiate the call, a consent is required, but if the patient initiates a call, it is a implied consent. 3, Telemedicine Act says you need to keep the record of every OPD consultation, which according to MCI, you are supposed to keep a record of only inpatients. Now, Telemedicine Act read with MCI, now onwards, you may have to keep records of a non-telemedicine consultation with you also. So make sure that these two laws are to be read together, because telemedicine guidelines have come back as a part of MCI ethics regulation. Anything new overrides the previous one. That's one. Next is always inform your state registration council that you started telemedicine
अभी चल रही है.
because you need to tell them your jurisdiction, where is your jurisdiction. So have an agreement with the patient and tell them, I'm giving you a telemedicine consultation and my jurisdiction will be my state medical council. Otherwise, patient will file a case in his area of consultation. So you need to make clear with the patient in your agreement that I am practicing in Delhi, therefore my jurisdiction will be state Delhi Medical Council. Otherwise, if he is consulting you from Bombay, he will file a case in Bombay. So therefore, there are certain precautions which needs to be taken when you are doing a tele consultation with that. And another thing is, in a teleconsultation, it is your responsibility to see to it that which platform you are using does not take away the privacy and the privacy of the thing. Next is, large number of patients, the doctors have started advertising about their telemedicine activities. According to MCI Ethics 6.1, you can only inform once. You cannot do it repeatedly. You cannot solicit patients. You cannot inform patients again and again. So if you are a diabetic doctor practicing diabetology, remember that it's a boon. Telemedicine is going to be a boon for diabetic patients, because now all your follow-ups, you just have to know the sugar report and you know the HbA1c report, and you can give a teleconsultation. And up till now, all you doctors were having, they used to call IMA and say the patient refuses to pay us he gives us a consultation, and then for 6 times for the next follow-up, he doesn't pay us. Now it's an opportunity for you to inculcate telemedicine practice into your diabetic practice. Now, I want to, before I close and summarize, I will ask each one of you to give 1 or 2 closing remarks and the take-home messages for all our viewers, starting from Arvind, then Manoj, then Abhay, and then Dr. Jingal. Your voice is not coming. You need to unmute yourself. Yes, Arvind ji, Arvind ji, we say this that you are asymptomatic. Kindly make yourself symptomatic, because if you are mute, you are asymptomatic. So this is the COVID way of explaining. Become symptomatic. Yes. Well,
Okay, so it's unmuted. So what I would like to talk about the diabetes management is something that you can easily adopt on telemedicine. I think this is a technology which has definitely come as a boon, and this is what Dr. Agarwal was speaking about it. And it's always good to have the first consultation with the patient in your clinic, and for subsequent consultation, you just need to prepare the patient as to what you should be ready with. If you want a fasting postprandial HbA1c, if you want the blood pressure to be measured at home, please teach your patient what needs to be done and how he should prepare himself, and then come out to the telemedicine platform. And stay safe, continue to use the mask. I think the corona is not going to go away. It will stay maybe for 6 months, maybe for a year. That's going to be the new normal. Wear your mask, keep washing your hands, and the safe physical distancing is something that's going to be a norm. And that's all I would like to say.
Manoj?
So, yes, I'll have two messages, one for physicians and one for patients if it's reaching them. For physicians, of course, be available for your patients through whatever platform that you decide to, whether it is telehealth or in person consultation. But it's time for us to be available for our patients. They need us more than ever before. For patients or for physicians advising their patients, I think this is the time for advocacy of better monitoring of sugars. We are seeing sugars move in either direction, either going towards hyperglycemia or even dropping in hypoglycemia. So everybody should focus more on monitoring of sugars. And for patients who were careful about their diabetes, I think there's no other better time than today to wake up and then start managing your diabetes better, so that you remain safe from any of these infections, including COVID. In general, stay safe and stay healthy.
Abhay, I want you to cover Ramzan, because I haven't covered this. 3 questions have come on diabetes and Ramzan. Ramzan, Navratras, depending upon what festival it is.
Sir, actually, yeah. So here, actually, I want to, regarding the Ramzan, I want to put one important thing, that with COVID, I would request those who are diabetic, they should not go for Ramzan, because this is most essential part, that those who are diabetic with this COVID era, they should not go for Ramzan.
Okay. So they what do they do then?
I think the message which I can
But
give,
unfortunately,
that
this is
2,
a
3
myth.
things.
This will be a myth, because at least there is those who are going for Ramzan, at least they should clearly, actually before Ramzan, they should have at least discussed with their physician. But now that since the Ramzan is continuing, at least they should directly with telephone or with telemedicine, with WhatsApp, whatever may be, they should consult with their physician, and they should adjust the dose of the medicine. Or there are certain few drugs which are absolutely safe for during the Ramzan, like DP4 inhibitors, or particularly.
Okay. So your voice is not coming. Ashok, you want to say something as a final one before I summarize?
Discuss with.
I think
They should continue
the
that
last message I can give for all the patients who are diabetic, one is that keep good hydration, number 1. Number 2 is monitor the blood glucose, sir. Number 3, monitor the temperature. And last but not least is the urine examination for ketones. If everything is normal, you can lead absolutely normal life, even in this COVID fear, with the fear of the COVID infection also. So stay at home and stay healthy. Wear the mask and wash your hands.
Yes.
Keep the distance. So I think these 4, if you keep, then you will be absolutely fine.
Let me now summarize. Coronavirus is going to stay. It is not as deadly as in North America and in Europe. The incidence and mortality in India is 50% than that of China in terms of percentage of case fatality. Asians are behaving differently. Whatever may be the reason, take advantage of that. Make Corona as your friend. I spoke to Corona a month back in my dreams, and I asked him, what do you want? And he said, A, if you get rid of typhoid, diarrhea, food poisoning, and jaundice, that means if you start washing your hands, I will not come. But if you allow them, then let me also come and come back in your body. So we said, okay, we will continue washing our hands. We will not allow typhoid, jaundice to come. He says, okay, I promise you I will not come. Second thing he said was that if you do not allow H1N1 to come, you practice respiratory hygiene, I will not come. I said, fine. He says, if H1N1 you allow, I will also come. So he says, maintain respiratory hygiene. So we agreed. Number three, he said is very clearly, is he says, follow your Vedic practice that for an outside, which is called Atithi Devo Bhava, and elderly, Buzurg logon ko, he says, you used to give them asan, you never used to talk to them face to face. They used to be on a higher pedestal than yourself, so that both of them are not talking face to face. He says, if you have a habit of talking face to face, then you are letting me in, I will come inside. And the fourth thing he said was that if I enter your body, give me 14 days of unattended attention. And if I will come, stay there and go without harming you. And for that, make sure that you control your diabetes before I enter your body. He says, if you control your diabetes, blood pressure, and heart failure, I may enter. I'll give you some time. I will discuss with you. We will have discourses every day about your past, about your present, about your future. And I will make sure I will go without harming your body. And if you follow that cleanliness, which is decontamination, I will not harm you. So follow, do not have face-to-face meeting, have a face-to-side meeting or a side-to-side meeting. And he says, if you are diabetic, make sure that you continue your medication, you keep your HbA1c level between 6.5 to 7.5. You can choose amongst oral medications, whether you are taking metformin, whether you are taking gliptins, whether you are taking SGLT2 inhibitors, whether you are taking the newer Remo, whether you are combining it, whether you are taking it for heart failure, whatever you are doing, whether you prefer it one over the other, whether you say that gliptins have anti-inflammatory action, I want to prefer, he says, I'm not going to interfere into that. Whatever you do your shared decision with your doctor, and if you do that, I'm not going to trouble you. You respect me, I will respect you. And he says, I will make sure that your mortality in India remains at the lowest level. And he says, why are you fearing with me? Don't you have diabetic pneumonia complications as high as mine? Don't you see a cytokine storm when you get a flu with diabetics? Don't you know that not that flu can precipitate heart attacks in a patient? Don't you think that pneumonia can precipitate heart attacks? Then why you are fearing me? Take the fear out. Enjoy the next 14 days in a lockdown. And during these 14 days, learn that diabetic patients, if they are controlled, they are as same risk as a non-diabetic patient. I want to thank Dr. Arvind Sosale, Dr. Manoj Chawla, Dr. Abhay Sahu, Dr. Jingan, and all our viewers who are watching this program. I say goodbye to you. We'll be back with one more seminar. Thank you. And I absolutely stay corona free. And even if corona enters your house, make friends with him, live with him, and don't have a phobia. And don't spend time on your WhatsApp watching about phobia of corona. It is going to the phobia which is going to kill you, not the diabetes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe.